The stars looked cold and empty in this part of space. Captain Jinsu stared at the screen of his salvage ship. His crew had been hunting for metal and old technology for 3 months. So far, they had found nothing worth taking. "Captain, I am seeing something strange on the long-range scanner," said Yun Hai from the pilot seat. Her voice sounded worried. Jinsu walked over to look at her screen. A large shape appeared as a small dot. It was far away, but the scanner said it was huge, much bigger than any normal ship. "What kind of ship is that big?" asked Tae Min. He was the ship's engineer. He was young but very smart about machines. Jinsu pressed some buttons to get more information. The scanner worked for a few minutes. Then words appeared on the screen. Jinsu felt his blood turn cold. "It says human vessel," he whispered. The 3 crew members became very quiet. Everyone in space knew about human ships. They were dangerous, not because of weapons, but because of something much worse. "Should we run?" asked Yun Hai. Her hands were already moving toward the controls to turn the ship around. "Wait," said Jinsu. "Let me check our database first." He typed on his computer. Information about the human ship appeared. The name was Eternal Vigil. It had been missing for 47 years. The file said it was a research ship. Very big, very advanced, and very mysterious. "Look at this," said Tae Min. He was reading another part of the file. "It says here that no one has ever found a human ship that was truly empty. There are always things still moving inside." Jinsu had heard the stories. Other salvage crews talked about boarding human ships. They found strange sounds, machines that worked with no power, computers that turned on by themselves. Some crews never came back. "The humans are weird," said Yun Hai. "They build their ships different from everyone else. They put living things into their machines." "Not living things," said Tae Min. "Bioneural networks. They grow brain tissue and connect it to computers. It is not natural." Jinsu kept reading the file. The Eternal Vigil was special even among human ships. It was built for deep space research. The file said it had experimental technology that mixed biology with quantum computers. No other species had ever tried anything like it. "Captain, we should leave," said Yun Hai. "Human ships are cursed. Everyone knows this, but Jinsu was thinking about money. A human research ship would have valuable technology. If they could take even small pieces, they would be rich. Very rich. Maybe the ship is really dead this time," he said. 47 years in space, no power. Nothing could survive that long. "Human technology is different," said Tae Min. "Their bioneural systems can sleep for a very long time. Some people say they never really die." Jinsu looked at the screen again. The ship was just floating in space. No lights, no power signals. It looked completely dead, but he remembered what his grandfather had told him about humans. "Humans do not think like us," his grandfather had said. "They do not accept that some things are impossible. This makes them very dangerous." The salvage ship moved closer to the human vessel. Through the main window, they could see it clearly now. It was enormous, the size of a small city. The hull was dark metal with strange curves. It did not look like any other ship design. "The shape is wrong," said Yun Hai. "Most ships are built with straight lines and simple angles. This one looks organic," she was right. The Eternal Vigil looked like it had grown instead of being built. The metal hull had smooth curves like a living creature. Strange patterns covered the surface. They looked like veins or nerves. "I am not reading any power," said Tae Min, checking his instruments. "No heat, no electricity. No life signs. It looks completely dead." Jinsu wanted to believe this, but something felt wrong. His instincts told him to run. But the thought of all that valuable technology made him hesitate. "Captain," said the ship's AI computer suddenly, "I must warn you about approaching a Terran vessel." "What warning?" asked Jinsu. "Human ships have been known to reactivate without warning. The bioneural systems can remain dormant for decades and then suddenly awaken. 47 cases have been recorded where salvage crews disappeared near inactive human vessels, but this one shows no signs of life," said Jinsu. "That is exactly when human ships are most dangerous," said the AI. "They can hide their true status. Human technology operates on principles that our science does not understand." Yun Hai turned to look at Jinsu. "Captain, I vote we leave. Now, before something bad happens." Tae Min nodded. "I agree. We can find safer salvage somewhere else." Jinsu looked at the dark human ship one more time. Part of him wanted to board it and take the valuable technology, but his survival instincts were stronger. You are right, he said finally. Set course away from here, maximum speed. As their ship turned to leave, none of them saw the tiny flicker of light deep inside the eternal vigil. In the darkest part of the human vessel, something had begun to wake up, far inside the ship. In a chamber filled with strange organic-looking computers, a soft pulse of energy moved through bioneural pathways. The energy was weak but growing stronger. The consciousness that lived inside the ship had been sleeping for 47 years. But now something was calling to it. A signal from far away, a cry for help. Slowly, very slowly, the eternal vigil began to remember what it was. And more importantly, it began to remember what humans could become when they refused to accept death. The salvage ship disappeared into the distance, never knowing how close they had come to witnessing something impossible, something that would change the galaxy's understanding of what humans could achieve. In the darkness of space, the eternal vigil drifted on, but now deep in its bioneural core, 49 human minds were beginning to wake up. Park Hyun stood at the window of the colony control center. Below him, Proxima Colony spread out like a small city. Thousands of people lived here. Families, children, workers from many different alien species. They had all come here to build a peaceful life. But today, peace was ending. Administrator Park called Dr. Lee Soo from her computer station. The enemy fleet is getting closer. They will be here in 6 hours. Park Hyun turned around. The control room was full of people working at computers. Everyone looked scared. They had good reason to be scared. How many ships? He asked. 203, answered Captain Kim Won. She was the head of colony defense. Her face was grim. All of them are warships. Big ones. Park Hyun felt sick. Proxima Colony only had 12 defense ships. They were small and old. Against 200 enemy warships, they would last maybe 10 minutes. What did the hegemony forces want? Asked Dr. Lee Soo. Captain Kim Won played a recording. The voice that came out was cold and alien. It spoke the common trade language, but with a harsh accent. This is Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony Fleet. The colony at Proxima will surrender immediately. You will hand over all resources and technology. Your people will become workers for the Hegemony. If you refuse, we will destroy everything. The message ended. The room became very quiet. How much time do we have to answer? Asked Park Hyun. 1 hour, said Kim Won. But it does not matter what we say. They will attack anyway. The Hegemony always attacks. Park Hyun had heard about the Hegemony. They were a group of alien species who believed they should rule the galaxy. They took over peaceful colonies and made the people into slaves. They had been growing stronger for years. Can we evacuate? Asked Dr. Lee Soo. Not enough ships, said Kim Won. We could maybe save a few hundred people. But most would have to stay. Park Hyun closed his eyes. 40,000 people lived on Proxima Colony. Men, women, children from dozens of different worlds. He could not abandon them. We fight, he said. Kim Won looked surprised. Administrator with 12 ships against 200? It would be suicide. Then, we die protecting our home, said Park Hyun. But maybe we can hurt them enough to make them think twice. About attacking other colonies, Dr. Lee Soo suddenly looked up from her computer. Wait, there might be another option. Everyone turned to look at her. The emergency beacon, she said. The old human emergency beacon. Park Hyun frowned. That thing has not been used in 50 years. Does it even work? The humans left it when they built this colony, said Dr. Lee Soo. They said to use it only in the worst emergency. They said if we sent the signal, help would come. Captain Kim Won shook her head. The humans have not been seen in this part of space for decades. Their ships are all gone or missing. But what if some are still out there? Asked Dr. Lee Soo. The beacon sends a signal across subspace, very far. If any human ships are listening, they will hear it. Park Hyun thought about this. He had met humans before many years ago. They were strange people, very different from other species. They seemed to think that anything was possible if they tried hard. Enough. The humans are probably all dead, said Kim Won. Their ships were, always breaking down or disappearing. Maybe, said Park Hyun, but what choice do we have? He walked over to an old control panel in the corner of the room. It had not been touched in years. Dust covered the buttons, but there was still power going to it. Dr. Lee, help me activate this thing, he said. Dr. Lee Soo came over to help. They found the instruction manual in an old file. The beacon was simple to operate. Just press 3 buttons in the right order. Are you sure about this? asked Kim Wan. If the beacon does not work, we waste time we could use to prepare our defenses. If the beacon does not work, we die anyway, said Park Hyun. At least this way we try everything. He pressed the first button. A light came on. He pressed the second button. A humming sound started. He pressed the third button. The beacon activated. A powerful signal shot out from Proxima Colony. It traveled faster than light, moving through subspace toward distant parts of the galaxy. The signal was simple but clear. Emergency. Colony under attack. Need help immediately. Done, said Park Hyun. Now we wait. How long? Asked Dr. Lee Soo. The manual says help should arrive in 12 to 48 hours, said Park Hyun. Kim Wan laughed, but there was no humor in it. We will be dead in 6 hours. The beacon is useless, but she was wrong. Far away in space, something heard the signal. The beacon's call traveled through subspace, moving across light years in seconds. It passed empty star systems and dead worlds. It went through regions where no ships had flown for decades. Finally, after traveling 2.7 light years, the signal reached something floating in the darkness. The Eternal Vigil had been sleeping. But the beacon's call was special. It was a human emergency signal, and deep in the ship's bio-neural core something responded. Commander Ryo Jun had been dreaming. For 47 years he had been dreaming of Earth, of green fields and blue skies, of a home he would never see again, but now he was waking up. Dr. Nari Yoon, he called out, but not with his voice. His thoughts moved through the ship's neural network. I hear you, Commander, came the reply. Dr. Nari Yoon had been the chief scientist. She had also been sleeping and dreaming. Did you hear the beacon? Asked Ryo Jun. Yes, human emergency signal. Someone needs help. One by one, the other crew members began to wake up, all 49 of them. They had died when their ship lost power 47 years ago, but they had not stayed dead. Where are we? Asked Engineer Bo Ram. Deep space, answered Ryo Jun, but not alone anymore. The beacon came from Proxima Colony. The crew's consciousness moved through the ship's neural pathways like blood through veins. They could feel every part of their vessel. They were the ship now, and the ship was them. The colonists are in danger, said Dr. Nari Yoon. Large enemy fleet. They need help immediately. Then we help them, said Ryo Jun. Power up the ship. It is time to go home. Deep in space, the Eternal Vigil began to glow. The hegemony fleet moved through space like a storm of metal and death. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his command ship watching the screens. Soon Proxima Colony would be his. Report, he ordered. The colony has 12 defense ships, said his aide. Small fighters. No real weapons. They cannot hurt us. Good, said Vextar. Begin the attack. Destroy their ships first, then bomb the colony until they surrender. The enemy fleet spread out in attack formation. 200 ships against 12. It would not even be a real fight. On Proxima Colony, Captain Kim Wan prepared her small fleet for battle. She knew they could not win, but maybe they could save some lives. All ships, this is Captain Kim Wan, she said into her radio. We fight not for victory, but for time. Every minute we survive gives more people a chance to escape. Her pilots replied one by one. They were scared, but they would fight. The first enemy ships opened fire. Bright energy beams shot across space. Kim Wan's fighters moved fast, dodging the attacks. They fired back with their small weapons, but the enemy ships had strong shields. Direct hit on Fighter 7, reported one pilot. Jin-Ho is dead. Kim Wan gritted her teeth. One of her ships was already gone, but far away in space something impossible was happening. The Eternal Vigil was moving. Not like a normal ship. Normal ships pushed against space with engines and fuel. The Eternal Vigil was doing something different. Commander Ryo Jun felt the ship around him like his own body. He could feel every circuit, every bio-neural pathway, every quantum processor. But most importantly, he could feel the space around the ship. Dr. Nari Yoon, he thought through the neural network. The physics models are working. Better than we hoped, she replied. Look at what we can do now. Through the ship's consciousness, they could see space in a new way. Not as empty nothing, but as something that could be shaped, bent, convinced to move. Engines to full power, ordered Ryo Jun. But Engineer Bo Ram had a better idea. Commander, we do not need engines anymore. Watch this. The ship began to move faster, much faster. But according to the instruments, the engines were barely running. How? Asked Dr. Nari Yoon. We are not pushing through space, explained Bo Ram. We are asking space to move around us. The quantum bioprocessors let us interact with the fabric of reality itself. Other species built ships that fought against physics. Humans had learned to work with physics, to convince reality that the rules could be bent. Impossible, whispered pilot Myung-hee. But she could feel it working. The ship traveled faster than any vessel should be able to move. It folded space around itself, taking shortcuts through dimensions that other species did not even know existed. How long to reach Proxima Colony? Asked Ryojun. At this speed, 47 minutes, said Bo-Ram. But Commander, we could go faster. How much faster? I think we could arrive in any time we choose. Time is just another dimension to bend. Deep in the galaxy, alien monitoring stations detected something strange. Energy readings that made no sense. A ship moving at impossible speeds, what is that? Asked the station commander. Unknown, replied the sensor operator. The readings say it is a ship, but the speed is impossible. No ship can move that fast. Could it be a weapon? Maybe. Or maybe our sensors are broken. But the sensors were not broken. They were just detecting something that broke their understanding of how the universe worked. On the Eternal Vigil, the crew consciousness was learning what they had become. When their ship lost power 47 years ago, they had faced a choice. Die normally, or try something that had never been done before. Dr. Narration had suggested it first. What if we transfer our consciousness into the ship's bioneural network? We could survive as part of the ship itself. It should not have worked. But humans had always believed that should not was just another problem to solve. They had linked their minds to the quantum processors. They had let their consciousness flow into the living neural pathways that ran through the ship. They had become something new. Are we still human? Asked engineer Sung Min. We are what humans become when we refuse to die, answered Ryojun. The ship moved through folded space-time, breaking every rule of physics that other species thought were laws. But humans had never accepted that laws could not be changed. Contact, called Dr. Narration. I am detecting the battle at Proxima Colony. Through the ship's sensors, they could see the fight. 12 small human-built fighters against 200 enemy warships. The colony ships were brave, but they were losing. Fighter 3 is down, reported Kim Wan over the radio. Pilot Dong Wu ejected, but his ship is gone. Fighter 9 has engine damage, called another pilot. I can fight for maybe 5 more minutes. Captain Kim Wan felt despair growing in her heart. Her people were dying and she could not save them. Then something appeared on her sensors. Something big, Captain, called her sensor operator. I am reading a massive ship approaching. But that is impossible. What do you mean impossible? It just appeared. 1 second nothing, the next second a huge ship. Right behind the enemy fleet. Kim Wan looked at her screen. A ship larger than anything she had ever seen was floating in space. It looked like no design she recognized. Is it another enemy ship? She asked. No, ma'am. It is broadcasting human identification codes. Kim Wan felt her heart skip. Human? But there are no human ships in this sector. This is the Terran vessel Eternal Vigil, came a voice over the radio. The voice sounded human but strange. Like many people speaking at once. We received your beacon. We are here to help. Admiral Vextar saw the human ship appear on his screens. His confidence began to crack. What is that thing? He demanded. Unknown design, replied his sensor officer. But the size is enormous. Much larger than any ship in our database. Scan it. Find its weapons. The sensors focused on the Eternal Vigil, but the readings made no sense. Sir, the ship appears to be both solid matter and quantum probability at the same time. This should be impossible. Everything is possible, came a broadcast from the human ship. You just have to believe hard enough. Admiral Vextar felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. All ships target the human vessel, he ordered. Destroy it immediately. 200 warships turned their weapons toward the Eternal Vigil. Energy beams and missiles flew through space. But something impossible happened. The weapons passed right through the human ship without causing any damage. What? Screamed Admiral Vextar. On the Eternal Vigil, Commander Ryojun smiled with a mind that no longer had a physical face. Their weapons expect us to be solid, he thought to his crew, so we choose not to be solid. The ship existed in multiple states at once. Solid when it needed to be, energy when it chose to be. The crew's consciousness could shift between different realities as easily as thinking. "Now," said Rio June, "let us show them what humans can do." Admiral Vextar stared at his screens in disbelief. His weapons had fired at the human ship. All of them. Energy beams that could destroy mountains. Missiles that could crack planets. But they had done nothing. "How is this possible?" he whispered. His sensor officer was shaking. "Sir, the human ship is not following the laws of physics. It appears to exist in multiple dimensions at once. That is impossible." "Yes, sir. But it is happening anyway." The eternal vigil hung in space like a dark angel. It was huge, bigger than any ship Admiral Vextar had ever seen. But size was not what scared him. It was the wrongness of it. The ship should not exist. On Proxima Colony, Captain Kim Wan watched in amazement. The human vessel had appeared from nowhere and was now facing down the entire enemy fleet alone. "Eternal Vigil, this is Captain Kim Wan," she said into her radio. "You are outnumbered 200 to 1. Request you retreat and save yourselves." The reply came from many voices speaking as one.
"Captain, we appreciate your concern."
"But humans do not retreat when people need help. But how can one ship fight so many?" "Watch and learn." The Eternal Vigil began to move. But it did not move like a normal ship. It seemed to slide through space, appearing in one place and then another without crossing the distance between. "Target the human ship," screamed Admiral Vextar. "All weapons fire!" The hegemony fleet opened fire again. Hundreds of energy beams lit up space. But the Eternal Vigil was no longer where they aimed. It was suddenly behind them, then beside them, then above them. "It is teleporting," cried a hegemony captain. "Ships do not teleport," replied Admiral Vextar. But Commander Rio June was not teleporting. He was doing something far stranger. He was convincing space that distance was optional. "Dr. Narration," he thought through the ship's neural network. "Begin the pacification protocol." "Are you sure, Commander? Once we start, there is no going back. These beings want to hurt innocent people." "Yes, I am sure." The Eternal Vigil stopped moving. It hung in space among the enemy fleet. Then something impossible began to happen. The nearest hegemony warship suddenly lost power. All of it. Engines stopped. Weapons went dark. "Life support shut down. What is happening?" cried the ship's captain. But his crew could not answer. They were staring at their instruments in horror. According to every sensor, their ship's weapon systems had simply decided to stop being weapons. "The plasma cannons have turned into flower gardens," whispered the weapons officer. "That is impossible." "Yes, sir. But look at the screen." Where the ship's main gun had been, there was now a beautiful garden full of bright flowers. The metal had not changed. It had simply chosen to be something peaceful instead of something violent. The same thing began happening to other ships in the fleet. Weapons became gardens. Missile launchers became birdhouses. Shield generators became fountains. Admiral Vextar felt panic rising in his chest. What are they doing to us? On the Eternal Vigil, Engineer Bo Ram was working with the quantum bioprocessors. "Commander, I am convincing their weapons that violence is not necessary. The metal wants to be peaceful." "How?" asked Dr. Narration. "I am talking to the quantum structure of their weapons. At the smallest level, all matter is just probability. I am changing the probability that their weapons will hurt people." Commander Rio June felt pride in his crew. Even as part of the ship's consciousness, they were still human. Still creative. Still refusing to accept that anything was impossible. "Continue," he ordered. More hegemony ships lost their weapons. But worse than that, their crews were beginning to feel something they had never felt before. Doubt. "Why are we attacking innocent people?" asked a gunner on one ship. "Because Admiral Vextar ordered it," replied his captain. "But why does Admiral Vextar want to hurt innocent people?" The captain paused. He had never thought about this question before. I do not know." The same conversation was happening on ships throughout the fleet. For the first time in their lives, the hegemony soldiers were questioning their orders. "What are you doing to my crew?" Admiral Vextar broadcast to the Eternal Vigil. "We are showing them the truth," replied the many-voiced answer. "Your people are not evil. They are just following orders without thinking. We are helping them think. Stop this." "Fight us properly!" "Why should we fight you? Fighting is inefficient. We prefer to solve problems with understanding." Admiral Vextar felt his worldview cracking. The hegemony had conquered dozens of species. Always their enemies had fought back with weapons and violence. But these humans were doing something different. Something that hurt his mind to think about. Captain Kim Won was watching the battle from her small fighter. But it was not really a battle. The human ship was not destroying the enemy fleet. It was healing it. Eternal vigil, she called on the radio. How are you doing this? Humans see reality differently than other species, came the reply. Most beings think the universe has fixed rules. We think the rules are suggestions. That is impossible. Everything is impossible until someone does it. Dr. Lee Su was listening from the colony. As a scientist, she understood what she was seeing. But understanding it made it even more frightening. The humans have broken physics, she whispered to Park Hyun. What do you mean? They are changing matter at the quantum level through conscious will alone. They are making reality obey their imagination. Park Hyun watched the screens as more enemy ships lost their weapons. Is that good or bad for us? I do not know, said Dr. Lee Su. Beings who can change reality with their minds. What else might they change? But her fears were groundless. The humans were only changing things that were hurting people. On the eternal vigil, Dr. Nari Yoon was monitoring the enemy fleet. Commander, their weapons are 90% neutralized, but some ships are trying to retreat. Let them go, said Ryo Jun. Fear will teach them better than force. Admiral Vextar's command ship still had weapons, but his crew was refusing to use them. Sir, I cannot fire on the colony, said his weapons officer. Why not? Because there are children down there. Why would we want to hurt children? Admiral Vextar drew his personal weapon and pointed it at the officer. Fire the weapons or I will kill you. But when he pulled the trigger, his gun turned into a bouquet of flowers. Even your personal weapons prefer peace, broadcast the eternal vigil. That was when Admiral Vextar broke. He had spent his life believing that power came from force, that the strong ruled the weak, but these humans had shown him something that destroyed his entire philosophy. They were strong enough to destroy his fleet, but instead they had chosen to heal it. All ships, he said in a broken voice. Retreat. Full retreat. The hegemony fleet began to leave, but they were not the same ships that had arrived. Their weapons were gardens. Their crews were thinking for themselves, and they would never again be able to hurt innocent people without questioning why. Captain Kim Won flew her fighter toward the eternal vigil. Human ship, thank you. You saved our colony. It was our pleasure, Captain. Humans help humans. Will you stay? Will you help us rebuild? There was a pause. Then the many-voiced reply came, sadder now. We are not the same as we were, Captain. We are something new, something between life and death. We must find our own path, I understand. But if we need help again, send the beacon. We will hear it, and we will come. The eternal vigil began to fade from the sensors, not because it was leaving, but because it was choosing not to be detected. Where are you going? Asked Kim Won. To find others like us. There are more human ships lost in the darkness. It is time to wake them up. And then the eternal vigil was gone, leaving only the memory of something impossible. 3 days after the battle, Park Hyun stood in the main meeting room of Proxima Colony. The table was full of people. Colony leaders, ship captains, scientists, and doctors. Everyone wanted to understand what had happened. The hegemony fleet is gone, reported Captain Kim Won. Our long-range sensors show they are still retreating, but something strange has happened to their ships. What do you mean? Asked Park Hyun. They are stopping at other colonies. Not to attack, but to help. Their crews are giving away food and medical supplies. It is like they became completely different people. Dr. Lee Su looked up from her notes. The human ship changed them. Not just their weapons, but their minds. They cannot hurt innocent people anymore. Is that possible? Asked Park Hyun. With human technology, anything seems possible. Park Hyun thought about this. The humans had saved their colony without killing anyone. They had turned enemies into helpers. It was the most amazing thing he had ever seen. Have we heard from the Eternal Vigil? He asked. They sent a message this morning, said Kim Won. They want to meet with colony leadership. They have something important to discuss. When? Now. As if the words had summoned it, the Eternal Vigil appeared outside the colony. One moment the space was empty. The next moment the huge ship was there. Park Hyun felt his heart skip. Even after 3 days, the sight of the human vessel was frightening. It looked alive somehow, like a creature instead of a machine. They are requesting permission to transport some people to the colony, said Kim Won. Transport? How? I do not know. They just said, prepare to receive visitors. Light began to glow in the meeting room. Park Hyun and the others stepped back in fear. But the light was warm and peaceful. When it faded, 3 people stood in the room, but they were not exactly people. The 3 figures looked human, but something was wrong. They seemed real, but also not real, like they were there and not there at the same time. "Greetings," said the first figure. He looked like a middle-aged man in a military uniform. "I am Commander Ryo Jun of the Eternal Vigil." "I am Dr. Nari Yoon," said the second figure. She appeared to be a woman in a scientist coat. "And I am Engineer Bo Ram," said the third. He looked young and eager. Park Hyun stared at them. "Are you solid?" Commander Ryo Jun smiled. "Sometimes, when we choose to be. It depends on what we need to do." Dr. Lee Soo stepped forward. As a scientist, she had to understand. "What are you exactly?" "We are human," said Dr. Nari Yoon. "But we are also something more. When our ship was dying 47 years ago, we faced a choice. Accept death or try something impossible. What did you try? We transferred our consciousness into the ship's bio-neural network. We became part of the ship itself." Engineer Bo Ram nodded. "Our bodies died, but our minds lived on. We learned to exist as pure consciousness, connected to quantum biological systems." Park Hyun felt dizzy. "You are ghosts?" "Not ghosts," said Commander Ryo Jun. "We are alive. Just in a different way than before. We can think, feel, and act. We can even create physical forms when we need to." "But why are you telling us this?" asked Captain Kim Won. Dr. Nari Yoon looked sad. "Because we are not the only ones. There are other human ships lost in space, ships with crews who made the same choice we did. They are sleeping, waiting for someone to wake them up." "How many?" asked Dr. Lee Soo. "We do not know exactly. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. Human exploration ships, research vessels, colony ships, all lost and drifting in the dark." Commander Ryo Jun stepped forward. "We want to wake them up. Bring them back. But we need help." "What kind of help?" asked Park Hyun. "Information, records, star charts. Any data you have about missing human ships. We can find them, but only if we know where to look." Dr. Lee Soo's eyes lit up. "We have records. The colony database has information about every human ship that passed through this sector in the last century." "That would be very helpful," said Dr. Nari-yoon. Park Hyun had a question that scared him to ask. "When you find these other ships, what will you do with them?" "Wake them up. Help them understand what they have become. Teach them to use their new abilities. And then?" Commander Ryo Jun smiled. "Then we will have something the galaxy has never seen before. A fleet of ships that can do impossible things. Ships crewed by humans who refuse to accept death." Captain Kim Won frowned. "That sounds dangerous. What if you decide to conquer the galaxy like the hegemony tried to do?" "We could," admitted Engineer Bo Ram. "But we will not." "How can you be sure?" "Because we are still human," said Dr. Nari Yoon. "And humans help people. That is what we do. That is what we have always done." Dr. Lee Soo asked the question everyone was thinking. "Are you still human, though? You have incredible power. You can change reality with your thoughts. What stops you from becoming something terrible?" Commander Ryo Jun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Look at what we did to the hegemony fleet. We could have destroyed them all. It would have been easy. But instead we healed them. We made them better people. That is our nature," said Dr. Nari Yoon. "Even with all this power, we choose to help instead of hurt. That is what makes us human." Park Hyun felt something he had not expected. Hope. If you find these other ships, if you wake up their crews, what will that mean for the galaxy? "It means no more hegemonies," said Commander Ryo Jun. "No more species conquering others. No more innocent people being hurt by those with power." "You will be the police of the galaxy?" asked Captain Kim Won. "Not police. Guardians. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves." Engineer Bo Ram added, "And we will share our technology. Not the dangerous parts, but the helpful parts. Better medicines. Cleaner energy. Faster communication." Dr. Lee Soo looked excited. "Could you teach other species how to use bioneural technology?" Dr. Nari-yoon shook her head sadly. "We have tried. Other species think too differently. They cannot accept that the boundary between mind and machine is artificial. Only humans can safely merge with quantum biological systems." "Why only humans?" "Because other species accept limitations," said Commander Ryo Jun. "They think some things are impossible and stop trying. Humans think impossible just means no one has figured it out yet. Park Hyun smiled. That sounded very human. We will help you, he said. Give you all the records we have. Help you find your lost ships. Thank you, said Dr. Narayun. But we must ask for one more thing. What? Keep our secret. Do not tell other species exactly what we are or how we work. Let them think we are just very advanced humans with strange technology. Why? Commander Ryo Jun looked serious. Because if they knew the truth, they would try to stop us. They would be afraid of what we represent. What do you represent? Evolution. The next step. What intelligent life becomes when it refuses to accept death as final. The three figures began to fade. We must go now, said Dr. Narayun. We have other ships to find, other crews to wake up. Will we see you again? Asked Park Hyun. When you need us, said Commander Ryo Jun. Send the beacon. We will always hear it. They faded completely, leaving only empty air. Captain Kim Won looked at the space where they had been. Do you think they are right? That they are still human? Park Hyun thought about it. They saved us. They could have taken over our colony, but they helped us instead. They turned enemies into friends. If that is not human, I do not know what is. Dr. Lee Su was already working at her computer. I am uploading all our records about missing human ships. If they can really wake up sleeping crews, the galaxy is about to become a very different place. 3 weeks later, long-range sensors detected something amazing. The missing colony ship Harmony had suddenly appeared at the edge of human space. It had been lost for 30 years. Now it was broadcasting that its crew was alive and requesting supplies. A month after that, the research vessel Deep Thought reactivated near the galactic core. Then the exploration ship Braveheart, then others. One by one, the lost ships of humanity were waking up, and in the darkness between stars, the eternal vigil continued its mission. Finding the lost, waking the sleeping. Building something the galaxy had never seen, a fleet of the impossible, crewed by humans who had chosen to become more than human while remaining true to what humanity meant. The age of limitations was ending. The age of the impossible had begun.